communications on any electronic platform is sufficient to create a collective voice. But how many of us, that to be conscious about this, how many of us even attempted to write? Both men and women who are there. None of us did. Do you know why? Because the concept of adharma has set in, I think, in the way we have been brought up. The concept of adharma is set in the way we are socialized. We believe that in a system such as this, where there is no governance, in a system such as this, where democracy possibly is rather useless from a perspective. Thank you. Rather useless from a perspective of having 28 people to govern a crore of 28 representatives to govern a crore of people. We have related and relegated ourselves to a situation where existential scenario is more important for us than collective good. We are bothered about what happens in our house, we are bothered about what happens vis-a-vis us, and we have no time to deal with our own problems, and therefore consequently we have no time to deal with the problems of the community. The answer in my mind, ladies and gentlemen, to it is really the other way around. If we all believe, yes, from a dharmic perspective, if all are very good and all are above thresholds of morality, the society is good. But when it comes to community participation and governance in democracy, it is the other way around. If all of us stay quiet and say that we are not going to raise a voice, does not mean we have a peaceful society. If we do so, we become a meek society for the perpetrators of political power to continue what they are doing and change India to possibly a Russia where there will be an oligarchy of 200 people who will govern the country and everybody will keep quiet about it. How is that we change? The tonic is entirely the opposite. What we do in a private domain in terms of dharma and so on, private morality of being good and therefore community being good, turns on its head when it comes to community participation. That is, the only way we can make our lives better is to stand up for the problems of another person. The fact that we will collectively raise our voice the one time the particular lady's information is being put in the newspaper, the fact that at one time we will even threaten to boycott that newspaper, the fact that at one time we will even threaten to go up and have a dharana will necessarily mean that the next time there is an episode of that nature, that newspaper, that politician, that political leader will think 20 times before making a statement. The net effect is what? The net effect is our lives are better. Therefore, unless we look to the problems of another person and raise it in a political democracy, our life is not going to improve. And that is access to justice. The access to justice need not necessarily begin with you. The access to justice, in my view and in my modest view as a lawyer, necessarily begins with another person. If you will stand up for another person's right, believe me, you have started a revolution. And unfortunately, in Bangalore, and I am a part of all of you, I think we are spineless when it comes to that. I was told in Delhi that अब तो कर्नाटक से है, अब तो क्या करते हो? सिर्फ नाटक. That is correct. Thar Natak is our name. We are known to actually raise these issues and theorize all of these and be very theatrical in terms of the way we will deal with our problems from an academic context. Possibly over a cup of tea or possibly over dinner, turning up and saying, oh, what has gone wrong with Bangalore? What is happening to our city? But that is really theatrics and therefore that natak is a correct thing for us. But when it comes to acting on it, we don't. Please juxtapose that to the younger generation. And possibly what I say will put all of us who are older than possibly 30 in this room to shame. The electronic communication network that has grown in this country, the internet revolution that has occurred in this country, although has touched upon only a small percentile of our population and the digital divide continues to be wide, but even that small percentile of the population on whose lives information technology has had some impact, has actually changed society from within, and they are not the ones who are experienced. Therefore, today, let me turn up and say, experience is not the best thing in this life, and it's not always that people who are experienced are leaders and they should be. The experienced ones have kept quiet, and the so-called inexperienced ones are the people who are challenging the systems today. If you look at the internet platform, and I am a technology lawyer before I got designated, and I think I was appointed Additional Advocate General by the previous BJP government simply because I was a bit of a noise maker against the government for a long time. And they thought that the best thing to do is to possibly get him on this side and get him to defend our actions. Therefore, we kill two birds. One, his noise against us will stop, and second, he will now create noise for us against the others. But I realized in my little term as the Additional Advocate General in terms of seeing what sort of actions that were being taken vis-a-vis the internet platform, vis-a-vis what was happening on the internet platform from the state's perspective. If you look at any of the platforms, if you look at tweeting, if you look at blogging, if you look at e-groups, if you look at simply third-party content on the internet. That is free expression of ideas and thought process on the internet. I am not talking of proprietary content on the internet where I put on my own website and talk about gloriful things about me, or turn up and put my picture and say I am a mass leader and a social worker in Bangalore. Let alone that. But third-party content put up on electronic platform. We found that in Bangalore, majority of the thought processes which arose regarding churning of ideas, which you call mantana, really happened from people within the age bracket of 30 years. The most vivid ideas about what ails Bangalore, the most vivid ideas about what is the solution for Bangalore came from students who are studying in schools and colleges who are within the age bracket of 25. And therefore it was the 25 to 30, the average of 27 years, they were the leaders in terms of thought process who actually found solutions for the remaining majority of the old people. And therefore, who are the leaders? The average age of a leader here was, of course, more than 55 years in the last government. Possibly this government it's even more. But then consequently, what happened in terms of being, who are the thought leaders? The experienced people in Bangalore were not the thought leaders. It was the young and the inexperienced who are thought leaders in terms of what is happening. And give another example in terms of how hypocritical we are when it comes to our lives. We talk about knowledge. We talk about information technology. We talk about awareness. We talk about access to information. We talk about access to justice. We talk about every single aspect which possibly in a collective domain will change our lives. But we talk so in a public domain function like this. But when we come back to our house, in our houses, I will tell you what the average, from what I have seen, what is the average standard thresholds in our city. And we are an urban polity. We are a fairly heterogeneous society in Bangalore. And we are possibly one of the most cosmopolitan cities you can find in our country. But in a city of this nature, when it comes to our thresholds of our house and inside our thresholds, there is still a demarcation of roles that the husband and the wife will play. There is still a demarcation of the roles where the husband so-called is supposed to be a breadwinner and the wife so-called is supposed to be a homemaker. Whilst it is still to the contrary. The wife will continue to be a homemaker and continue to be a breadwinner. Whereas the husband will win some butter possibly for that bread, but certainly not be a homemaker. Now why is that we have a differential threshold when it comes to our house, when we have superlative considerations when it comes to outside? We can tolerate a lady who will become the chief minister of the state and listen to her ideas, her thresholds and her dictates. But we will not listen to the dictates of our respective spouses. When it comes to my wife's dictate, it is after all my wife. But if another lady who is possibly half as intelligent as her lands up being the prime minister, I will stand up and say, yes ma'am. We are a very hypocritical society. If you look at the average scenario of hypocrisy, I will give you two statistics. From the West, they said, Muslim countries in the world or countries which have Islamic influence in the world are really anti-women. And therefore we, the Americans and so-called Europeans, otherwise the Western Europeans, we are not anti-women, we actually treat them on an equal basis. Harvard conducted a study, and in that one study realized that this entire statement to say that Muslim countries are anti-women is false. Now if somebody had told me that Muslim countries are really anti-women, women don't have freedom, I would have accepted it at first blush to say, because that is the thought process I have. What Harvard did was to conduct a study of the number of women leaders Muslim countries have elected vis-a-vis the number of women leaders countries like America have elected. Just take our own neighbors. Pakistan, which is possibly one of the most rigid Muslim countries you can find, had women leaders ruling them. We had a Benazir Bhutto. Please look at Bangladesh. It is Sheikh Hasina or Begum Khalida Zia. Please look at India itself with all the thresholds of how we treat our women. So we had Indira Gandhi, for whom everybody stood and saluted. We today have Sonia Gandhi, all said and done. I criticize those people who criticize Sonia Gandhi from a perspective of saying, oh, foreign origin, etc. She has been a fantastic leader for the country, good or bad, from a political spectrum. She has been a leader who has stood, and people actually respect her for it. We tolerate female leaders, but we don't tolerate female leadership in our home thresholds. They looked at Afghanistan. Afghanistan had female pilots fighting for the Afghanistan Air Force well before America let female pilots fly their planes. And therefore, from that perspective, if you look at Jordan, if you look at the Queen, when it comes to many of the Middle Eastern countries, actually talk of emancipation of women, but when it comes to the United States of America, so unfortunately, Lady Michelle Obama is not allowed to talk of emancipation of women because that may actually touch upon some of the soft corners of Jewish community and therefore don't talk about it. I am only saying that please juxtapose our thought processes to what we believe we are. We believe we are a great society. We believe we are a liberated society as compared to many of our neighbors. Some of them very hegemonious Muslim governments, but some of them secular government but still hegemonious. But if you actually come down to dealing with our women, we actually have a dual standard within our threshold. Come to schooling. It's one exception in Bangalore that we send all our children to school. But if you look at Karnataka as an average, Chief Justice Vaghela took suo moto cognizance of children being dropped out of school, that is out of school children. And I think Katyayani Chamaraj, who recently got the Namma Bengaluru Person of the Year award, she actually championed that. They realized that 80% of the school dropouts were females in Karnataka, not males. The average threshold being in a rural area that I can send my boy to school, but I will send my daughter to work. Magalu mane kelasa ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ, maga ಶಾಲೆಗೆ ಹೋಗ್ತಾರೆ. Third, please look at how we deal with our boys and girls, our sons and our daughters. We believe Bangalore is now, we believe it is not safe. 2 years ago we believed it was safe. But we still permitted our boys to possibly go out and watch a movie and come back, but never permitted our girls to go. Not because we did not have the faith in the community, because we did not have faith in our girl child. The problem is we believe that our girl children are not capable of dealing with themselves. We believe that our girl children need the protection that we as parents must give. And that arises, madam, because we are oriented that way, that when we were children, we were denoted that yes, my primary duty is to protect my sister. My primary duty of my father or mother is to look after the girl child she is going. I as a boy would fend for myself. I ask myself the question, why is that so? If you look at actually what happens beyond adolescence and adulthood, it is the female who continues to be mature, to serve society, to possibly serve her parents rather than the boys. Now where does maturity come all the way all of a sudden? Maturity comes from socialization. And if we don't leave our girl children to go out and socialize and mingle, we cannot expect them to be mature. Number one. Number two, let me also say this politically, a lot of you may disagree, but the one thing we don't teach our boys is to deal with girls. We conduct the mistake of bifurcating society from within our house. We will not tolerate if our sons land up having a girlfriend and come back and tell you that so and so is there, she's my friend. Forget even a girlfriend. You will not tolerate the fact that your boy has a friend who's a girl. You don't want him to deal with the opposite sex. Unless he deals with the opposite sex, how is he going to even learn to respect her? How is he even going to deal with that person when it comes to social domain? If I am a boy and I am excluded from dealing with a girl as I would deal with another boy, if I am not left in a platform where I can deal with a boy and a girl on equal keel, how are you expecting me to become a better human being when I get married? How is that I will deal with my wife? That issue, and I think as a matter of society, we fail. And we fail in our thresholds when we say, no, we are a very mature community. And mostly the Hindus, and let me be very critical about our own group. We believe that we are aware, we believe that we know the Shastras, we believe that we know what is Dharma and Adharma. We believe that we have a strong sense of right and wrong. But we don't believe that our girls deserve the freedom that they do. We don't believe that our boys deserve the freedom to interact with girls as they should. We don't believe that our girls deserve the freedom, not at all. Girls don't deserve the freedom to deal with any other boy. You should either be a brother, or you should be a father, or you should be a husband. Anybody other than that you don't deal with. Ladies and gentlemen, that is exactly the tenet of Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia does it with a burqa, we do it without a burqa. We have invisible burqas when it comes to our country. And we criticize Saudi Arabia and we have no right whatsoever to do so when it comes to telling them, oh, you don't let your women drive. We don't let our women drive what? Drive policy, drive thought process, drive the future for us. We don't. We may let them drive cars. Who cares? Every driver drives a car. And therefore, from that perspective, what is access to justice? Access to justice, ladies and gentlemen, begins at your threshold. Please let your daughter have the same access as your son will. And for that, please turn and mature yourself. If you don't have the guts, admit the fact that you are a failure when it comes to society. If you don't have the maturity to deal with your girl child as you will deal with your boy child, then you are a misfit in the society. It's one thing to say Bharat Mata, which is Devi, but it's totally another thing to say when it comes to my girl child. You will have to study, you will have to come home at 6 o'clock, you will have to then get married, and once you are married, my responsibility is over. Now you deal with it with your husband. And that husband is somebody who has never dealt with a female all his life. And then he finds this female. He turns up saying that, what are we doing? That is our society in urban Bangalore. Please look at that society when it comes to rural Guttakal or when it comes to rural Kolar. Where do we stand? And what are we talking about access to justice? I'll give another example. As to the amount of hypocrisy that we have. There is a website called ijustmadelove.com. I don't know how many of you have gone to it. I believe the majority number of access to ijustmadelove.com comes from Asia and not from Europe or America. That is a website where men and women can share their experiences about lovemaking in a free egalitarian world. I'm not saying that you must be an Osho society to go around doing whatever you want. But you at least have the freedom to express yourself. You might have made love with your spouse, doesn't matter. To express yourself saying that was good or bad, whatever. There is a platform of that nature. I can access ijustmadelove.com and put some comment in terms of how my lovemaking was last night. That is not banned in India. Why? Because we are an open society. We believe in right to access to information. We believe in free speech and expression. So it's okay. A girl therefore in Delhi can put her experiences on a website to turn up and say, yes, I just made love last night to whoever cares. Nobody talks about it. But here, I put it. No problem. Is that girl banished? No. Go 150 kilometers out of Delhi to Moradabad. If a girl belonging to a particular community is seen, community, not even religion, a girl belonging to a particular community within Hinduism, is seen with another boy belonging to a community so-called which is lower in threshold, the Kap Panchayat sits in Moradabad and both the boy and girl are stripped and paraded in town or chased away from the town or even killed. They are hung. Now that is the dichotomy we have. And the government does not ban that either. I think that way the government is egalitarian. It will not ban this and even the Kap Panchayats are not. But please look at the dichotomy that exists within our country. The so-called country which is going to surpass China in its growth rate and in its economic size by 2020. The country which is only fifth in the world to actually explore space. The country whose talent pool governs virtually the entire internet space in the US. The country whose engineering capabilities today far surpasses that of Germany, and courtesy Narendra Modi, the country which will possibly be a leader in manufacturing in the next 5 years. But that country, when it comes to dealing with its social issues, is so horribly backdated that we do the same thing that Saudi Arabia does. They do it ostensibly with the sword, we do it very politely with the so-called concept of saying, adu ethos. We have to be ethical about it. Our ethos don't permit our girls to actually go out and have a good time in the evening and come back. It's ethos. It is reputation. It is society. It is our family background. Are we not hypocritical? And what are we talking about access to justice? Therefore, when I got this mail from Jyotika, the first thing I said, what are you talking of access to justice? Like charity begins at home, access to justice begins at home. The first thing every father and mother should do is to make sure that your daughter has access to justice. Justice to say that under the constitution, two similar people will not be treated dissimilarly. Therefore, a daughter will not be treated dissimilarly to the son. If you believe your daughter is not safe in society, don't send your son to get him to sit home at 6 o'clock. Because you live in an unsafe society. You owe it to your daughter to make sure that your son is back at home at 6 o'clock. But if you let your son go out at 8 o'clock, then you owe it to yourself that you provide a system. If you want to go behind, you want to keep a watch, you do so. But you provide a system that your girl can go out at 8 o'clock. If you can't do that, you have not provided access to justice, and nor do you have a right then to ask your government to provide access to justice. Let me also come back to a scenario of saying how horribly backward we are in terms of even realizing what our children are doing. We are sitting here on a Saturday evening. I'm sure some of the kids are here. I'm sure a lot of you have children back home. And I'm sure all of them are net savvy and tech savvy. Do you have any idea what they are doing on the internet today? How many of you do you have filters in terms of your internet access? You may have access through a telephone, you may have access through Wi-Fi, you may have a pop-up connection, you may have anything at all, or you may have a connection through your satellite channel provider. How many of you have established protocols in those systems to ensure that only certain content is available to your children and certain other content is not. I can bet my practice certificate as a senior advocate on it. None of you would have done. First. Second, how is it you are very comfortable in sitting here and listening to what I am speaking when you now realize that your children could be watching something really, really horrible? I will tell you why we are comfortable about it. Because it is not happening in the front of our eyes. We have mastered the art of the power of here and now. If anybody tells you that I am going to teach you the power of here and now, you should tell them, sit down. We will teach you the power of here and now. Here and now is what matters. You are well dressed, I am dressed, you are behaving well, I am behaving well, hello, hello, I am speaking, you are listening. You have no idea what happens behind you and you don't care. Genuinely you don't care. You don't care what your children are seeing now. You don't care what your girl child is doing on the internet, with whom she is chatting, what is being uploaded, what is being downloaded. You don't care what your son is doing on the internet, whether it is actually Vedic sciences that he is reading or whether he is watching pornography. You don't care. Because it is not happening in the front of your eyes. So long as it is not staring at you, you have the tendency to ignore it. That is the next level of hypocrisy that we have. Please understand, ladies and gentlemen, that level of hypocrisy transcends into politics, transcends into society. We are absolutely fine when it does not relate to us. If the next community or the next ward has problems in terms of water, it doesn't matter to us. If we have problems in front of our eyes on water, we will protest. If the next door neighbor has a problem in terms of sewerage, no problem. If my house has a problem, I will raise it. Even in my case, if there is a problem that is brewing but that problem is not staring, I will possibly take it. It must stare at you and that is when it will become a glaring problem. We literally take it so. That it becomes a glaring problem when it is in front of your eyes. Now these children who are actually sitting at home and doing whatever they are doing, let me assure you one thing. They are more mature than what we think they are.
That is the reason why we are doing.
I don't think so, madam. That is the reason. That is the reason we justify. You justify the fact that you are not doing. I will tell you what it is. The Americans believe in it. In God we trust. The rest we check. So therefore, trusting our children is one thing, but my trust about my child will come provided by all my other structural safeguards are put in. We don't even put in our safeguards.
That's unfortunately the death knell of our country.
That's correct.
Because we have, I mean, what point that you rightly raised is so true because we think that I think everything is fine, but that's actually a hallucination.
Absolutely it is.
No.
And therefore, I'll just complete this. On that, therefore, if it comes to a situation of saying, why do we trust? I think the trust must emanate from a few things, and I'll be very clinical about this trust. You know, when trust comes in, it is like when courage sets in. Trust and courage are literally related brothers, sisters, and others. Trust is actually in the same domain as courage. When I said you will be courageous to go in the middle of the night, possibly across the forest, I will tell you when I will be courageous. When I have a weapon with me, I have a fully loaded gun, I have a flashlight, I have 4 people behind me as guards, I have 4 people ahead of me, I can protect myself and I have sensors and thermal cameras to say any animal coming anywhere is fine. I have ghost busting cameras to say ghosts and spirits. I am very courageous. How would I not be courageous? I am the best man you can find in the world. Let us see, anything comes, I am ready. Why does that courage set in? Because you have built systems around you which will establish that courage for you, and therefore you are courageous. Trust is a similar factor. Trust must set in when you have built those systems around you to say that come what may, there is a check, there is a balance, and therefore I can trust you. When I know that if you are corrupt, the system will catch you, I will trust you implicitly. Because I know that you will also know that the system will catch you and therefore you will implicitly be right. Same with our children. Don't tell me that you will not put filters in your internet access, but you will trust your child. That is really not the ethos of Hindu society. In God we trust, the rest we check should be the ethos of our society too. Now why is that our children still do very well is because I think the next generation is far more intelligent, is far more mature than we are. They are far more mature than we were at their age, that is one. They are far more mature than we are at our age. Consequently, that child who knows what is available on the internet, that child will then know that I will not access it for one reason. Because of our societal feeling of moral fear and respect for our parents. Moral fear and respect for our elders. Please see the fine line there. We have matured the art of moral respect. We have matured the art of fear, psychosis, etc. from a moral pedestal. But we have not matured the art from the same aspect of respect to society and respect to governance from a legal pedestal. Roscoe Pound said, law is minimum morality. The law will never say you should stand up and respect your elder, you should offer your seat to the elder. Does any law say that you have to get up and offer a seat for the elder? Why? Because that is higher morality. Law is minimum morality, which says you will not pull the chair away when somebody is sitting, because if you do so, then you are hurting that person and I will prosecute you. Law only tells you what is minimum threshold in society. It is Roscoe Pound said so in the 18th century, that is minimum morality. Now I ask myself the question, in a Hindu Rashtra, if we can on the higher morality pedestal, we achieve the threshold of saying, I will not do something which will put my parents to shame. I will not do something which will hurt my elders. Why is that? The elders can't apply that to a yardstick of moral threshold of a minimum morality yardstick to law to say that even in the legal community I will. The concluding remarks are only this. I think, I am one of you. I think the problem arises from a perspective of we have the grain of dharma in us being born in this country. That grain of dharma, I think, comes to us in some form or the other. But what does not come to us is the parallel education system of treating you and teaching you what values are rather than providing you information. Phones have gone wireless is a good thing, but education has gone valueless is a bad thing. So if we can, and therefore there is a great deal of circumspection that we need to do in our houses to make sure that we muster the gap and fill it in with the right things that we will do to our children. The best thing that we can do to our children is because they are getting Western education, they are getting awareness, they have information at the fingertips. The one thing that they don't have is the freedom to come and consult with you on a problem that they may face. If my son has a problem, I don't have a son, I'm a daughter, but if my son has a problem in terms of his feelings for another girl, he does not have access to come to you and speak to you. You don't give him that access. If your daughter has a problem with possibly another girl, another boy, another teacher, another colleague, whatever, she has no freedom to come and speak to you in terms of the gory details of that problem. You are not providing access, and therefore we don't provide access to justice to our children. The minute we do that, the minute we shun away with our ethos of being hypocrites and listen to the problems of our children with an open mind and deal with that problem, that is the genesis of access to justice, and that I think is the genesis of an egalitarian society. Thank you, and I will be more than happy to take questions. No, I don't need a microphone. I'm generally known to be a loud person.
I think most people can
You
hear.
can hear.
First question.
I have a question. What is the anatomy of a girl and the anatomy of a boy?
Physical or mental, sir?
No, anatomy. I am asking anatomy, no digital or anything like that.
No, physical or mental anatomy?
Physical. Mental, physical you tell.
I must confess that I have no answer for that question, so maybe I should learn.
Why? See, I cannot conceive. Lady can conceive.
Yes, correct.
Why she can conceive? How she can conceive? Why she can conceive? Who can conceive her? So there is a difference between the boy and the girl.
Correct.
So girl has to be protected. She cannot be free. You say that she should be left free. No, she should not be left free. Because parents will have to take that responsibility.
Can I ask you a question?
Educating the people.
I agree. Can I ask a counter question?
Yes.
Parents should take the responsibility for what?
What?
Let's take it to the next level.
No.
Parents should take the responsibility for
I
what?
will tell you, if I am not allowing my girl to go astray, she will not become pregnant.
If the girl is let
No, very good. I think it's a right question. Right.
Responsibility of the parents having a daughter. I think it's responsibility
You tell
of
me.
the father having
You tell
a
me.
son.
Yeah.
You should not be saying this.
No, let it.
No, let it. Churchill said this of all people. You should let you may not agree with what he says, but you must defend by your life his right to say so. So let him say so.
No. People are telling prostitute. Who makes her a prostitute? Tell me. What do you call him? She cannot herself